This is Oklahoma Inside Out, a weekly broadcast of Cimarron Alliance that focuses on the issues, culture, and people important to LGBT Oklahomans. And now, here's your host for Oklahoma Inside Out, Scott J. Hamilton.
Hi, and welcome to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm delighted that you're with us today. I want to say a special thanks to Monty Milburn for joining us last week. He was here talking about the exciting new DBA Diversity Business Association that kicked off last week with more than 200 people turning out to support this great event. And we are thrilled that so many people are signing up as members of DBA. For more information or to sign up yourself, just go to dbaokc.com. Our guest today is certainly no stranger to many people in the LGBT community and beyond here in central Oklahoma. He has a fascinating career, and we're going to be talking about how he got into that and what's happening for him. It's a bit of a turn for Oklahoma Inside Out, but as you know, one of the things that we do is focus on the people important to LGBT Oklahomans. And this is one of those people today. We'll be back to talk with him, but first let's take a look at news making the headlines this week. In his second inaugural address, President Obama made reference to historic events in the women's rights movement, the black civil rights movement, and the gay rights movement. He mentioned Seneca Falls, New York, site of the first women's rights convention, Selma, Alabama, where demonstrators advocating for black voting rights were attacked by police in 1965, and where Dr. Martin Luther King led a historic march, and the Stonewall Inn in New York's Greenwich Village, the site of a 1969 riot that inspired the modern-day gay rights movement. In responding to the president's speech, NAACP President Benjamin Thomas Jellis had this to say. In his speech, I think the president did ultimately what he does best, which is to really speak to the commonality across so many different groups in our society, the commonality across so many different struggles for rights, and get right down to the core, that at the end of the day, what we're all seeking to do, and what the freedom fighters at Seneca Falls, Selma, and Stonewall were all doing, is just simply move our country toward the realization of its own pledge that this be one nation with liberty and justice for all. Speaking of the inauguration, the LGBT inclusive nature of President Obama's festivities carried over into the traditional presidential inaugural prayer service at the National Cathedral in Washington, where the first openly gay clergy member participated. Before I introduce our guest today, I just want to say a big shout out and hello to all of the people who are gathering in Atlanta this week for the Creating Change Conference. This is the first time in many years that I have not attended that conference. It's just that we've got so much happening here in Oklahoma City that I could not get away. So to all of my colleagues from LGBT centers and organizations around the country, have a great time in Atlanta, learn a lot, and be sure and share that when you get back home. Our guest today is a man who is really enjoying quite a lot of success in the Oklahoma City area. It's an interesting career field to be a part of, and I want to find out how he got into that. Our guest today is Matt McNeil, owner of OKC Estate Sales. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us today.
How's it going, Scott?
So, first of all, how does someone say, I think I'm going to get into the estate sale business?
Well, I was in the retail antiques trade for about 35 years. I'd been in the trade since about 9 years old. My mother and daddy encouraged me in that. And I've been an avid collector for all that time. Had a retail antiques business here in town for many years. And when I sold the business almost 15 years ago, I decided to go back and go back to school. And so through the International Society of Appraisers and the University of Maryland, I started my accreditation process as an appraiser of personal property. And at that time, in order to supplement my income, I decided to try my hand at estate liquidation. I'd worked estate sales for probably 20 years prior. And so it all tied together as a corollary. My baccalaureate degree is in history. My background in general is in history and antiques. And so that's kind of how it all came about.
That's fascinating. I can imagine that an old state New England perhaps, you would have lots and lots of antiques. But Oklahoma is a relatively young state. How does that factor into your work and finding cool stuff here?
Well, for example, the sale we're doing this weekend has a lot of mid-century modern. People forget that Oklahoma was a very wealthy state as well as a very poor state. It was a typical southern state in that there was that great dichotomy, and particularly during the successive oil boom. So there's a treasure trove here of Art Deco and mid-century modern. And so while it's true that we don't run into, say, the sugar chest that we see in Tennessee or Georgia, or maybe the New England jelly cabinets we would see on the East Coast, we have an abundance of really great 20th century items here.
Do you work with people from around the country who are interested in things here in the state?
I do. I'm a very active member of the International Society of Appraisers, and I presented at conference last year in Tempe on Oklahoma art pottery, the really great pieces you don't see very often from the 1930s, WPA, early Francoma, what have you. And I'll be presenting this year in Chicago at our headquarters on professional estate liquidation.
Wow. I'm just thinking about all of the things that one would find in an estate sale. And how do you even begin the process of putting a price to something? I mean, I've seen pictures of some of your sales, and it's everything from linens to china to furniture to dog
tractors
collars.
to guns, the whole 9 yards. Well, again, 35 years of experience plus just a lot of hands-on experience over the last 15 years in the profession itself. Absolutely, too, though, if I'm out of my bailiwick, I'm going to call in an expert, and we, of course, pay for that process, whether I need to call in an expert on Confederate coins or gems, whatever the field might be. Also, I subscribe to a number of very expensive but very worthwhile auction databases that allow me to look at the auction market over the last 2 to 5 years and see what things have actually been selling for on the real market. A lot of markets have changed, with the economic downturn of the last 8 or 9 years.
When you agree to do an estate sale for someone, is there a criteria that you say, yeah, I'll do this one, or no, we're going to pass on that?
Right. There are times when a sale is outside our demographic. There are also times when I simply can't afford to do some of the smaller sales. Say a sale that's going to run considerably under $12,000 or $13,000. What I might say is, look, let me turn that to a smaller liquidator whom I trust implicitly. And what I then in turn will do for that smaller liquidator is to put the full power of my website and my email list behind him or her. Our emails go out to currently around 9,200 people. And if you notice on my website today, you'll see an ad not only for my sale, but also for a dear friend of ours by the name of Georgia Carson. I turned her a small sale in Norman, and we're advertising that for her this weekend.
So it's really a community then.
Well, these are if I advertise for them on my website, these are people to whom I want to hitch my wagon. I don't do it for just anyone.
Okay. I'd like to talk some about the more unusual things that you have run across in your career. And also, I'm particularly interested in some of the more interesting characters that you've worked with. We're coming up on a break, but when we come back, let's focus on some of the most interesting people that you've come across in your career. Our guest today is Matt McNeil, and he is the president of OKC Estate Sales here in Oklahoma City.
Hi, I'm David Macy, a board member of the Cimarron Alliance, and I'm asking for your help. We work every single day to make life better for gay Oklahomans, now and for generations to come. But we can't do it without you. Please consider making a gift of just $20 a month to the Cimarron Alliance and be a part of our march toward equality. Visit www.cimarronalliance.org today and make your pledge. It's a gift you can feel good about giving.
It's a brand new year, and the Oklahoma Observer has a brand new look. We asked our readers what they wanted, and we've given it to them. Now, the Oklahoma Observer arrives in your mailbox in a convenient magazine format. That means more room for more stories that are important to you. What's more, our online version at www.okobserver.net is updated throughout the day, so you have instant access to the news, analysis, and in-depth reporting that you just can't find anywhere else. The legislature will soon be in session, and you can count on the Oklahoma Observer to be your eyes and ears at the Capitol and beyond. If you're a progressive Oklahoman, You owe it to yourself to be informed about issues and legislation that impact you, your family, and the LGBT community. Visit www.okobserver.net today. Our only agenda is to provide critical news to critical thinkers.
Welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, and our guest today is Matt McNeil, president of OKC Estate Sales. That's what I've been saying. It's actually okcestatesales.com. So that's the name of the business, but that's also the way that people can find you, right?
Absolutely.
And also, let's take a moment and give your phone number as well. We didn't do that before.
Sure.
It's area code 405-949-9935.
That's right.
Let's talk about some of the more unusual things that you've run across in your career. What are things that people keep hidden in a closet, and then when it's time to let everything go, it appears again?
Well, for example, on the current estate we're working on, the family had asked, their father died in 1953, but he had been in the European theater during the war. Their stepfather had been in the Pacific theater, and they very specifically requested that, if we found items from the father's World War II career, that we turn them over to the family. That was fine. That was written in the contract. And the other day we found a large box of items, all dated, all silver, heavy coin silver, souvenirs from Tehran in 1943. So I called the daughter and I said, "I thought you said your father was in the Pacific theater." And she said, "Well, he was." And I said, "Well, we found all these things from Tehran in 1943. So she called her great aunt, who's 95 years old, and she said, "Was Daddy ever in Iran?" And she said, "Oh, yes, during the war he was sent to guard a diplomatic mission. And so that's why we had all these things." And it turns out that the Pahlavi family had, in fact, given their father these things in gratitude for his service in Tehran in 1943. So it's fascinating when you find little bits of history like that.
What a gift to the family to learn something that special that they didn't know before.
Absolutely. In my own family, my ancestors came into Indian territory by way of Virginia, but some cousins stopped off in Missouri on the way in the 1850s. And when my great-grandfather died, we found out that we actually had, we knew we had many Confederate ancestors, but it was a typical Missouri family to the extent that we also had a Union ancestor. So
that is interesting that you say that. My dad has done a lot of work on the genealogy of his family, and there's more than one instance where one brother fought for the Confederacy and another brother in the same family fought for the Union.
That's right.
So let's talk about the people. Who are some of the more interesting customers you've run across, or what? I mean, are people, obviously everyone's looking for a bargain when they go to an estate sale.
Well, first off, a lot of our clients are not necessarily the deceased. We work for divorcing couples, couple of people wanting to downsize, what have you, bankruptcy, business liquidation, what have you. Ambassador Edward Perkins out of Norman was one of my favorite customers. He was the first African-American ambassador to South Africa, appointed under President Reagan, and he was there when apartheid ended. He had been ambassador to Lesotho prior to that, and just a true gentleman through and through, born in a log cabin in North Carolina and had risen to the ranks of United States ambassador. County Commissioner Jim Roth, dear, wonderful fellow, great to work with. Just so many really interesting characters along the way and great personalities.
What about the people who come to a sale?
It really runs the gamut. It truly does. We get everyone from serious antiques dealers from Little Rock, Dallas, New York, Chicago, you name it, all the way to folks buying appliances for rental units. For many people, this is just a Saturday hobby. Other people are very specific collectors, and they look only for certain items. For example, this weekend, we have a ton of really great vintage clothes, and I will have people there simply for the clothes, the hats, the accessories, what have you. Again, it really is on a broad spectrum.
I know for me that we've been talking about having a garage sale, and forget an estate sale, just a garage sale for 2 years. And it hasn't happened because every time I come across something, it's like, well, I might need that. How do you and your partner keep from just filling every nook in your house with great stuff that you run across?
Well, first, my home was already filled for many years because I was a dealer and a collector for so many years. Second, it's an ethical conflict of interest. It would be for me to buy for my own sales. And third, and this is crucial, I don't want to become my clients, really, Scott.
Okay.
I don't want to go down that road. And we've been dealing with a few hoarders recently. I did a sale last year in which the owner had paid almost $38,000 a year on storage alone. Secret hoarder, no one in the family knew. The wife died. The husband started getting bills for about $3,600 a month. And I look at that situation, I think, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah. But, that raises a very interesting question for me. Are you seeing more people who are hoarding today than before?
Actually, I'm seeing more families who've suffered from the effects of hoarding. Shows such as Hoarders and Hoarding Buried Alive are having a major impact. In fiscal 2012, we did 6 different storage sales. This family had paid $18,000 in storage, this $38,000 a year, this one $24,000. Things get damaged in storage.
Matt, we're coming up on
Sure.
a break, but let's pick that up when we come back, because I think
Absolutely.
that's a fascinating part of your work.
Hi, I'm Lorette Taylor, past chair of Cimarron Alliance. I joined the board because I believe in the vision and the work of this organization. We're working every day listening to the concerns of our community and helping to address those very concerns. I hope you will consider supporting Cimarron with a gift. Even $10 a month will help. Working together, we really can achieve equality for all gay Oklahomans. Please visit www.cimarronalliance.org and make your gift today.
It's a brand new year, and the Oklahoma Observer has a brand new look. We asked our readers what they wanted, and we've given it to them. Now, the Oklahoma Observer arrives in your mailbox in a convenient magazine format. That means more room for more stories that are important to you. What's more, our online version at www.okobserver.net is updated throughout the day, so you have instant access to the news, analysis, and in-depth reporting that you just can't find anywhere else. The legislature will soon be in session, and you can count on the Oklahoma Observer to be your eyes and ears at the Capitol and beyond. If you're a progressive Oklahoman, you owe it to yourself to be informed about issues and legislation that impact you, your family, and the LGBT community. Visit www.okobserver.net today. Our only agenda is to provide critical news to critical thinkers.
You're listening to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm Scott J. Hamilton. We're visiting with Matt McNeil. Matt, just before the break, you were talking about walking in and finding someone who had spent literally thousands of dollars a year on storage fees. That must be very disconcerting to the family when they find out that they have all these storage units just full of stuff.
Well, I've often said that if I had fewer scruples, I would go into either religion or the storage building, because if you have no scruples, it's a good way. Either way, it's a good way to make a lot of money. Because basically what these storage buildings do is they prey on hoarding. And, they're frequently burglarized. There's a lot of water damage, a lot of bug damage. I think that the best way to look at it, the storage buildings should be used only as a short-term solution. Because after a point, you're just, it's law of diminishing returns. You're throwing good money after bad. And I just can't advise against it strongly enough for the long term.
When it comes to the time to liquidate one's belongings, whether it's through a divorce or a death in the family, any advice for us? Is there anything that we need to do to prepare?
Well, many people actually name me in their pre-need policies. That's one thing you can do, or in your wills. Another thing to do is to keep your mouth shut. I know that sounds very undiplomatic, but one of the biggest mistakes I see is, they tell the neighbors, they tell the crazy cousins, and before long, relatives have come out of the woodwork. And that's why I say turn it over to a good realtor, turn it over to a good liquidator, find someone who's bonded and insured, check their Better Business Bureau ratings, letters of reference, what have you, see if they're bonded or insured, that kind of thing. And then turn it over after all the final disbursements have been made. But it's absolutely crucial that you be discreet about it, because otherwise you make the house a sitting duck for burglars and what have you.
I'd never even thought about that, but sure, security would be an issue.
What some criminals will do now, I've read, a common MO is for them to check out the obituary. And while the funeral's being conducted, they'll actually break in. And we have a satellite monitored security system that belongs to my firm. It travels with us. The only sale of mine that was ever burglarized, wouldn't you know, it was the one where the system had not yet been installed. And so that's why we're now really scrupulous about having that system installed each and every sale.
Because, I mean, to get people there, you have to advertise in advance, obviously.
Exactly. And, you know, there are, again, about currently 9,200 people on our list. Who knows who some of those people are?
Sure.
And so security is, of the essence.
Well, I have learned a lot in this time. Let me ask you, when people come across interesting things in their home, because we've picked up things over the years and forgotten about them and then find them again and wonder about the value, or if there is any value. Do you do individual appraisals on things?
I do. We offer two services. One is the actual appraisal service. Now, an appraisal by its definition is a legally binding document. All of our appraisals are written to use CAPP standards, and I'm also enrolled with the Internal Revenue Service and the Oklahoma Tax Commission as a personal property appraiser. That said, there are times when people don't want to pay $180 an hour with a 4-hour minimum. And so what we do, I have a weekly show on KFOR with Linda Kavanaugh once a week. It's called Trash or Treasure.
And that's on
Wednesdays,
yes.
At the end of the 4:30 newscast. And those who wish to, get a complimentary evaluation on one or two items, they're allowed up to 2 items per person. There are only 2 conditions for coming on the show. They'll be there for about 2.5 hours, and if their item's selected to go on the air, they need to appear on the air with it.
Matt, I can't believe we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today on Oklahoma Inside Out. Our guest has been Matt McNeil, president of OKCEstateSales.com. Be sure and check out his website, and I think that he's given us a lot to think about today, and I appreciate him being here. I appreciate you being here, too. I hope that you'll tell your friends about this broadcast, because we're here every week with a new show, and it's all for you. Our producer is Chris Moyer. Our office coordinator is PK Kelly Palmer. Our announcer is Lisa Pizzeri, and Cimarron Alliance board co-chairs are Randall Marsh and Catherine Primus. From all of us at Cimarron Alliance and Oklahoma Inside Out, I'm Scott J. Hamilton. Thank you for joining us, and hang on to the vision of a fair and just Oklahoma.
Oklahoma Inside Out is a production of Cimarron Alliance, Central Oklahoma's preeminent LGBT advocacy and education organization. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed, or a person who you would like to hear interviewed, please call 405-495-9300 or email oklahomainsideout@cimarronalliance.org. Please feel free to share the link to this broadcast with your friends.